Guglielmo Marconi, Thomas Edison, Philo T. Farnsworth, Henry Ford, Steve Jobs. Names that we know, though perhaps not too intimately, but all individuals who have made our lives better, who have made our lives easier. We probably don't often think about the brilliant minds that invent things that we use and engage with every single day, and yet they have changed not only our lives, but literally changed the course of history. With some insights as to where do young minds find encouragement and inspiration to become someday the next layer of inventors. Well, with some insights, we're now joined by David Pridham. David, by the way, is not only a book author, but he serves as chairman and CEO of Dominion Harbor Group. He has more than a decade of experience advising clients in both monetization and acquisition of intellectual property and complex patent litigation, and is right in the center of encouraging young minds to learn how to become the next layer of inventors. And David, a delight to have you with us today.
Great. Thank you, Craig. Thanks so much for having me.
You know, when we think about some of these great inventions, I referred to the inventor of radio, the inventor of the phonograph, light bulb, television, all of this, that have all added so much to our day-to-day lives, and yet probably very seldom do we ever think about, well, where do they get the curiosity? Where do they find the inspiration to think about problems that the world has and how to go about solving them?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I feel like the inspiration and the creativity is within all of us. I think that everyone has that little spark, always has the ability to think of, well, what would be a great innovation in healthcare or communications technology or transportation. But it takes that plus encouragement, external encouragement, whether it be through the family or whether it be through the government we live under, and that's one of the blessings we've had in this country since inception. This is really a country that's built on the concept of creation, of invention. It broke off from the United Kingdom for one of the express purposes of giving individuals, regardless of class, the ability to break through and move up society, and that's not any different in terms of how we, as a country, have treated inventors.
And of course, the benefit there is not only has our nation long had a history of encouraging entrepreneurship, but also helping to sort of set flame to that spark of creativity, which, as I mentioned, and you just underscored my point, and that is that historically, probably no other country has contributed to the betterment of the world than the United States. And I suppose largely that's because we've almost been like an incubator for creative young minds.
That's exactly right. I used to try patent cases for a living back in another lifetime. And one of the things I would tell a jury is that the concept of inventions, inventors, is at the bedrock of our nation. It's in the Constitution. The first patent applications where folks would try to get their inventions patented were actually reviewed by Thomas Jefferson, who was the Secretary of State. He would go through the submissions, mark them up, send them back to the inventor and their lawyer, and they'd eventually arrive on an invention that was able to be patented. Those first inventions were signed by George Washington, in addition to Jefferson as the first president. So this was one of the most important things the government did at its inception, and it's been no different than that. It's even grown over the years, and really that's what fueled the Industrial Revolution. That's what fueled the mechanical revolution, the technological revolution. It's what grew Silicon Valley into a behemoth. And it's really what's made our country strong, this concept of protecting innovation and allowing anyone, no matter their race, their creed, their sexual orientation, to be able to profit from their ideas. And what's important is, in my view, that everyone know that, and especially children of today.
Absolutely. And, you know, ironically, I think there was a point in time, I'm guessing, just trying to recall this from history, but I think at some point in the late 1920s, there was even dialogue amongst some in Washington, D.C. about the notion of, well, maybe it's time to shut down the U.S. Patent Office because anything that can be invented has been invented. And imagine how much we will have lost out on in the last 100 years had that been the prevailing mindset. What I'm fascinated by, David, is based on your years of experience in the intellectual property rights arena. You, along with your wife Emberly, have launched an all-new book series that you've co-authored together called "If Not You," which really, I think, brings to the heart of this matter of how do we go about encouraging and inspiring the next generation of inventors. We all hear how, we encourage children. Someday you could grow up to be president of the United States. But certainly, I think the idea of encouraging a child with the notion that they could someday grow up to become the next Steve Jobs, the next Elon Musk, certainly is an area that I think we need to really encourage and foster. And this new book series helps do just that.
Yeah, that's right. We started this book series because often my wife and I would be talking to another couple or even to our own children, and they'd ask me what daddy does for a living. And I'd start explaining it in a hyper technical way and talking about patents and patent filings and term limits on patents and all this. And eventually everyone would either be asleep or their eyes would glaze over and they'd just wander away. And my wife, who's really the creative part of our team, came up with the idea of writing a book series geared towards children to teach them that their ideas are just as important as ours. And really, every time we sit down with a schoolroom class and we read one of our books to them, the first message we deliver is that in this audience today could be the next Henry Ford, could be the next Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison, and so on and so forth. And when kids hear that, you're empowering them with knowledge that their ideas, their creativity could lead to the next great societal evolution or invention. And they get really excited, and then they go off and they start writing down those ideas. And that's how it starts.
So really, it is in the greatest, truest sense of the word, inspiring children to the art of what's possible, and I think fostering in them both a sense of curiosity as well as that notion of problem solving. That not only is a skill that they will take with them through their entire adult life, that's I think necessary in that regard for all of us, but as you so aptly point out, David, the possibility of planting that seed and helping to germinate it, that someday your son, your daughter could indeed grow up to become the next phenomenal inventor, be it a Henry Ford or whomever it might be. What I'm struck by, too, is the notion that oftentimes many of the inventions that we benefit from today came about entirely by accident. Take, for example, the Post-it note, which I think every modern office uses probably multiple times a day, and yet I understand that too was kind of an accident.
Yeah, a lot of it is trial and error. Every time you hear a story from Edison's lab or even Alexander Graham Bell and his historic invention of the telephone. I mean, those are inventions that they didn't set out to invent necessarily from the start. It's always trial and error, and often the best inventions are ones that an inventor happens upon, right, by chance. And so and really another point is that the when we explain this concept to kids, a lot of them think that inventions are beyond their reach because they're hyper technical. They think automatically, oh, well, my goodness, I have to invent a rocket or I have to invent a way to desalinate water or something really complicated. And we say, no, listen, look on your shirt, look down, look at that button, look at that zipper. I mean, these things have all been invented. We take them for granted, but in our books, we talk about those simple inventions that we think have always been there. But in fact, someone did invent those, someone patented those, and those lead to the next wave of inventions, which lead to the next wave of inventions. That's really how we get to where we are with the iPhone X or whatever it is now, all the way back from Alexander Graham Bell's laboratory.
So the notion that even something as simple as the basic mousetrap can still be improved upon. And I think what's particularly encouraging here for parents, as they help their children dive into the If Not You book series, and that is the notion that, we often get frustrated. Kids seem to be glued to the TV set, glued to the video games. Here's a way that you can help encourage them to kind of think beyond all of that and spark that sense of imagination and creativity that, quite frankly, children in their, late elementary to preteen years really need to be encouraged that way.
Yeah, we with our kids, we've got three kids that are younger, 6, 5 and 2. And for our oldest, we have them with a little notebook by their bed every night, and we have them just write down an idea they have, some idea, whether, and we try to remove all constraints. It doesn't matter how fantastical it is. It doesn't matter that it can't be created today, or you don't have the means to create it. What if you could do anything? What would you create? What would you invent? And we try to do that exercise every night, and it's amazing the different things you get out of children when you remove those parameters. And what we teach them is that when you remove those parameters, you're on an equal playing field as an Edison or as a Graham Bell or a Steve Jobs, who, if they had put those blinders on and had created parameters for themselves, who knows where we would be now.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you think about some of the great minds down through history. There's undoubtedly people that probably saw the early drawings done by, for example, Galileo, and thought, oh, this guy is just he's crackers. There is no way. That thing looks like a bird that's going to fly. And then, 500 years later, you find out, yeah, he had the idea for the first helicopter. So I think that sense of taking down barriers for children and helping them to expand and explore their minds and their imagination, not only helps them live more rounded, more wholesome lives, but may indeed, as we said earlier, plant that seed that could germinate into the next great invention that makes our lives easier or makes our lives better. Tell us a bit, if you would, David, about some of the inspiration that you and Emberly have used in writing this book series.
Well, what we've tried to do is we've tried to take different circumstances and different day-to-day activities that kids will find themselves in, and then we try to show how all of the things that kids do rely on something that was invented in the past. So, for example, our first book, The Inventor in the Pink Pajamas, goes through the ordinary school day of a young girl, and as she goes through her day, everything from her electric toothbrush to the bus she takes to school to sitting down with grandpa reading off of a tablet at the end of the day have been invented by someone else. And so we try to show that. We then move on to our subsequent books. One is about a boy and his family building a treehouse and all of the ingenuity that goes into that. And we also try to layer upon that some type of problem solving. So kids coming up with their own invention for a pulley system to bring supplies up to the treehouse. Our next book was about the games kids play and inventing a new game among children in a neighborhood. We have a book, Going Green, which is about a green science fair, really the most important crisis confronting our generation of children today is how to treat this planet that's been so good to us. And what we try to do is show how kids can come up with different solutions for, quote unquote, saving the planet or making it a cleaner planet. And then finally, we've got a Christmas book that we just released last year for the holidays, which shows all the great inventions that go into Christmas, from, putting lights on a Christmas tree all the way to creating an outdoor ice rink with a Zamboni. So we've tried to cover all the different bases, and we continue to do so. We've got 4 or 5 more books planned covering different things that kids do and love.
This exciting book series by David and Emberly Pridham, called again, If Not You, is not only ideal for homeschooling parents, but quite frankly, any parent that wants to help inspire their child to think bigger, think greater, and who knows, maybe you'll have the next Thomas Edison living underneath your roof. If you want to get more information about this book series, simply go online to ifnotyoubooks.com. That's ifnotyoubooks.com. The whole series is available again online at ifnotyoubooks.com. And David, I understand that you also have created a Young Inventors Club that help not only inspire young minds, but give them that sense of connectivity and cohesiveness with other young thinkers.
We have. We found that as part of writing the books and getting them out there to children, a lot of the kids that read our books and the families that buy our books ask, well, how can we actually deploy what we learn in the books? How can we help our kids to actually create? And so because of that, we created the Young Inventors Club, and that's an online forum for families to get together and for kids to do everything from challenges that some of our experts lay out all the way to submitting their own inventions for evaluation. and also interacting with other families. We've sort of created that forum, and we've also created an Inventors Journal in line with that. And so when people join the club, they get an Inventors Journal. They're able to do these challenges, and this is sort of the notebook you can have by your nightstand and actually write out your ideas and go through little puzzles and tests that help sort of sharpen the creative juices in our children. So we're very excited. We've had thousands of kids join so far, and we're starting to really ramp the club up.
That's exciting stuff. So ifnotoubooks.com, order the series. Once you've inspired them, then the younginventorsclub.com, a great place to hang out and help channel a lot of that energy and bring together many young thinkers and minds. Well, it's an exciting series, David, and we appreciate you spending some time with us today to talk about the If Not You books. And again, we want to direct our listeners, check it out online, ifnotoubooks.com and the younginventorsclub.com. David Pridham, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you so much for having me.